a hallmark of the loss of rationality. A rational person understands that relationship is made of these inevitable, complex, nuanced, dynamical trade-offs. We're now seeing, that there's this long-term negative consequences across many dimensions of people's lives that have been, negatively affected by the way the policies were imposed and the way they were communicated too. People were not given a sense of participating in this. They were just mandated what to do.
By a dictator.
So let's come back to the meaning crisis. Some people describe, I think the term is, there was a religion-sized hole left in people's hearts as we became a more secularized society. That might not be the whole story. I know it isn't, because I've been reading a bit of your work, right? But that's part of it.
Yes.
Right.
I think it's a big part of it.
Right.
So we're using this term meaning, and we're using a metaphor. We're saying there's something about the way our lives, our experience is organized that is like the way a sentence is organized and means something about the world. Like if I say there's a cat over there, the sentence has a meaning, and it connects you to that situation so that you can determine what's real in that situation, whether or not it's true or false. And we say, oh, there's something about our lives that has that connectedness. Now, that's what it turns out people are talking about when they're talking about meaning life, is this sense of, well, there's a coherence to my life. My life hangs together in such a way that I feel that I'm deeply connected to myself, to other people, and the world. Now, the thing about that is, human cognition is so dynamic and complex. The processes that make that connectedness possible also make us perennially prone to self-deceptive, self-destructive behavior. So we need practices, and not just one practice. There's no panacea practice. We need a whole living system. I sometimes call it like an ecology of practices for ameliorating this, right? This self-deceptiveness. I'll use an older term, the foolishness of our lives, and enhancing the connectedness, the flourishing. We need a way of cultivating wisdom. And the problem is that for a very long time, the places that were like the gardeners, the tenders of these ecologies and practices, and homed them and gave them an overarching justifying worldview, were the religions. And as we've lost the religions for a lot of good reasons, by the way, what nevertheless has happened is we lost this baby with the bathwater. We've lost all of these ecologies and practices and a philosophical framework that helps people put it into their lives. So people don't know where to go to cultivate wisdom. I will ask my students, where do you go for information? They'll hold up their cell phones right away. Where do you go for knowledge? And they're sort of a little bit more suspicious. They'll say, well, the university science. And then I'll say, and where do you go for wisdom? And they don't have an answer. And so that's the whole. People sense that they're not connected. They're losing touch. They're beset by this self-destruct. I'm going to use this term in a technical sense, like the way the philosopher Frankfurt does. They're beset by bullshit. There's so much bullshit in their lives. There's so much bullshit in the media, but they don't know how to cut through it. They don't know how to train themselves. They don't know how to connect to other people. So as a group, they can cut through this and get at what's really going on. And so this is not optional. Wisdom isn't optional. So people struggle and they get into weird rabbit holes and they try this and they try that. And so they suffer. So the loss of the religious worldview, what Peter Berger calls a sacred canopy, right, has opened people up to this pervasive sense that they're beset by they know not what. And they got a sense that something needs to be done, something's wrong, but they know not what it is and they know not how to address it.
John, we're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be right back.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
And this is such a gentle painting, so beautifully portrayed.
A group of people reading together in this simple, everyday-looking living room. A young girl reading along with an adult, a grandparent sitting in the lotus position, a businessman in his typical suit.
You see all those people, they look like they have quietly settled down there. And you as a viewer, it looks like you've just stepped in the door.
You can't see what it is they're reading, so you're a little bit curious and you're kind of invited to walk in.
This harmonious feeling is not by accident. It is the very subject of the work. The book they are reading is the main text of Falun Gong, which is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition. At the core of Falun Gong are the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Unfortunately, the practice is banned in China, where the artist resides. Thousands have been killed for their faith. Golden energy blooms into the room as a result of their steadfast faith. The painting on the back wall reminds us of this work's title, Plum Blossoms in a Muddy World.
It's also a metaphor for the practitioners that are sitting in the room as plum blossoms.
To pursuing what you believe to be true, they will manipulate your behavior. That's very, very clear. Now the thing is, we have this metaphor, oh, well, that person's lying to themselves. Well, you can't really do that. You can't really say to yourself, hey, believe this, even though it's not true. That's not how belief works. Belief isn't a voluntary act that way. But the bullshit artist isn't trying to manipulate you in terms of your commitment to the truth. The bullshit artist is trying to get you to be disinterested, right, in whether or not what's being said is true. They're trying to sort of unplug you from your commitment to the truth and plug you into what is something else that motivates your behavior.
Yeah.
And that's how salient something is, how much it stands out, how catchy it is, how much it grabs your attention. This is how advertising works. You watch a shampoo commercial. This person is using the shampoo. For some reason, they're in this beautiful botanical situation and the sun is shining and they're happy. You know that's not true. You know it's not true, and they know you know it's not true, and it doesn't matter because they have made this wonderful emotional association with the product that makes it salient. So when you go into the store, without realizing it, it jumps off the shelf at you, and you buy the shampoo. And this is what bullshit is. It disconnects you from the truth and gets you caught up. This is why our social media is all about clickbait. It's all about salience. It's all about getting you not caring about the truth. And here's the important thing, Jan. You can't lie to yourself, but you can bullshit yourself. Because I can make something salient just by giving it my attention. And then my memory will remember that that was salient for me just because I paid attention to it. And so when I'm looking around, I'll be drawn back to that. And then it becomes more salient for me again. And then I get looped in, and I slowly start to forget that there's other alternatives, there's other things to look at.
I find what you're saying very moving. I mean, in a, again, very disturbing way, because it, just struck me what a cesspool of BS we are stewing in. I mean, we are constantly assaulted. In fact, the whole project of information right now seems to be to push as much bullshit BS into the system as possible.
It is very easy if I can get you to stop caring about bringing careful, reflective attention and, dialogical conversation and thought about whether or not something is true, and instead get you, hey, look at how shiny that is. Look at how fast it is. Look at the rhythm. Look at the beat. Look at how much it is catching your attention. It is so much easier, faster, and effective to manipulate you and control you. And then the problem is, you start to do that with other people. Because the only way you can get their attention in a market or a world that is beset by BS is by really pumping up the salience. I know this. I'm on YouTube, and I'm constantly struggling with, okay, you have to make this accessible. You have to get people's attention. But it's like, yeah, but I don't want to do that at the expense of calling them to the careful attention and reflection that is needed for the pursuit of truth.
So you said something very profound just now, and I know this is, of course, central to your thinking as well. You mentioned this idea of a dialogical conversation, and I'm going to get you to explain that to me in some detail. But the bottom line is that it's a relationship.
Yes.
It's a relationship that's forming. And what you're talking about here is the absence of that relationship. It's like a barrage of a relationship with these, sort of clicky.
It's like on social media where you have connections, but you don't have actual social relationships with people. So people pile up the number of connections they have, but they're not actually connected with.
Well, so this idea of
You're bullshitting
dialogical
yourself.
conversation. I mean, earlier today we were at a smaller private event, and you talked about how that is central to the process of real education, right? And so explain dialogical. Explain to me exactly what that means. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and this goes towards the heart of education, and also towards the heart of how democracy is supposed to work. And when this gets undermined, both education and democracy get seriously undermined. So here's the basic idea, and there's lots of scientific evidence for this, and it's mounting. So have you ever noticed that if your friend is doing something sort of foolish, you can be so wise. You can say, hey, blah, 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 you're doing that thing you do, and you're making that mistake, and but when it's you that's making the mistake, it's so hard for you to see your bias, right? So when you're outside someone's perspective, it's very easy to see the way that bias is, that perspective is biasing them. But when you're within a perspective, it's very hard to see it. So here's the thing. You are actually my best chance of me correcting my biases, and I am your best chance for you correcting your biases. And what we have to both do is commit to, we're going to trust each other, we're going to entrust ourselves to each other, and we're going to commit to a shared process. Instead of you and I'm right, you're wrong, or it's like, I want to get closer to the
Right.
truth, and so I'm going to pay very